The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, there's an old joke doing the rounds in the Pacific that at least now New Zealand is listening to them. Listening to them because the GCSB is wholesale harvesting their data. The same joke's been going around New Zealand that the first time the national governments listened to New Zealanders is when they got the GCSB to do it. And that is, of course, an extreme example of what we're talking about here. The necessary privacy that must be attached to citizens' information, be that at the routine level of avoiding breaches and stuff-ups, the systemic level of developing systems that are resilient and robust to those accidents, and even more importantly, the systemic level of avoiding the deliberate attempts by third parties to access the private information of New Zealanders. Before I go into those three layers for which the Special Commission of Inquiry is essential, let me just quickly note the fallacy in the previous member's contribution. Her line of argument was because one of the examples quoted by my colleague Claire Curran dated from 2012, the bill was no longer needed because everything had all been fixed. Well, my colleague's done a data poll on stories of government privacy breaches since January 2015, sir, and there are plenty of them. There's a Northland Regional Council breach. There's an abortion data leak error from Lakes District Health Board to Fairfax Media. There is the Broadcasting Standards Authority claim around the Valley Animal Research Centre. There's a Plunkett privacy breach in Taranaki. That's private sector rather than, or NGO sector rather than government. There's the Southern District Health Board and so on and so forth. So there are plenty of examples, and if you want the statistics, the Privacy Commission has helpfully compiled them. And what they tell us is several interesting things. That since 2012, when the member's quoted example was concluded, the number of government privacy breaches has actually gone up. Last year Labor was in office, it was 13. In the most recent year under investigation, which was 2014, there were 86, Mr Speaker. It's gone up from 13 to 86.
No problem.
And what's worse is that the private sector equivalent, the whole private sector, which is 2/3 of the economy, only had 27. So the 1/3 of the economy, which is the government run by the National Party, had 86 major privacy breaches, and there were only 27 in the rest of the economy. What kind of causes were there, according to the Privacy Commissioner? Unsafe website design, lost or theft of physical data files, loss or theft of portable storage devices, improper employee browsing, which was not prevented, electronic information sent to the wrong recipient, or physical information sent to the wrong recipient. These are all causes. Now let's come back to that staircase of issues. At the bottom level is an individual agency which has a stuff-up, whether it's a computer design error or whether it's an employee error, and they can be extremely serious, and the member opposite quoted some cases where third-party consultants had been called in to investigate them. Good insofar as it goes, if the report is thorough, if the agency acts on the recommendations, we all know they usually gather dust on the doorstep, but if they're implemented. But what an individual report cannot do, Mr Speaker, is it cannot look at the system, and it cannot look at the links between different agencies and the protocols that run and necessarily should run across the whole of government. That's when we get into the second tier, sir. That is systemic data security design. Now, not long ago, the government did a project on authenticating individuals. The government wants to take individual transactions up with government online from 46% to 70%. We live in the age of big data, sir. These privacy issues are going to become more and more and more important. And then we get to the third tier, sir, which is deliberate use of private data. Now, that happens every day, admittedly. ISPs, website hosting companies and everybody else seems to have systems where they harvest data about their users and then on-sell it to third parties or use it to target their own activities. We need to make sure that the government's protocols around all three layers are tight. That is why we need this Commission of Inquiry. That is why we need this bill.
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, thank you for the opportunity.